What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode 23. And unfortunately, a little bit of a dark podcast here. We have some news to go over here that we're not looking forward to talking about, but we all feel very strongly we need to address and talk about here on the podcast. So strap in for that. We will get to some Rainbow Six Siege news towards the end here, as far as the patch that came out today, as well as a dev blog that came out regarding the ongoing fight against cheating. We want to talk about that, maybe a little bit of Pro League as well. But in the beginning here, we have some stuff that's been going on in the scene. We have some internal stuff here we want to talk about. And it's a bit of bad news here. As you may have heard, a fellow creator within the space, Icy Care, has passed away about 3 days ago at the time of recording this, 3 or 4 days ago. And it's actually terrible news, completely unexpected. And he leaves behind a family, and pretty shocking news. So we wanted to talk about that in this setting. I've talked about it a little bit on Twitter, just how shocked I was, but I mean, I don't know.
It's messed up, innit? I didn't know. I was like, this episode, I think, is just going to be like real talk, I think. But I didn't know Icy Cat particularly well. Not like I know you two or, Bikini, Rogue, Grief Drums, creators that perhaps I've met in person and more to do with. But I mean, I've had some interaction with him, and he was always a really sweet guy. And his videos were probably one of the first other creators other than my own, obviously, that I was watching in the Siege community. I mean, everyone knows his in-depth series, and credit to him, they were really in-depth, helpful videos. He did a lot for the Siege community. And if you saw how he spoke on Twitter and in his videos, he always had the player at heart with how he talked about stuff. Even recently with we had some interaction with some of the new operators talking about them on Twitter. So I was so sad to hear about his passing.
It's horrible how out of the blue that shit comes.
Yeah, man.
Because you never know.
Yeah.
I think we should link some links in the description down below for anyone that might be in a tough spot, right?
We can do that.
It's the internet's fucking unforgiving, because you never know if the guy you're having an argument with is having a bad day, right?
Yeah.
Or how much it takes to push people off the edge, or what causes it. Oh, it's grim. And then it's someone where the only thing that, at least the public, because I didn't know him either, the only thing I've ever seen was someone that was happy making videos, right?
Yeah.
That's the only interaction I ever saw. And then you have someone leaving a family behind, so you have to have been in a really rough spot, because oof.
So one of the things that jumps out to me with Icy Cat, and I had some interactions with him very early. I think, well, first of all, if you're somebody who's been playing this game since year one, I would almost guarantee you that Icy Cat was one of the first YouTubers that you probably watched. And he had probably one of the first Siege podcasts. It was called the Siege Report, with him and Nukem Dukem, and he reached out to me, and I think I had 30,000 subscribers at the time. I was really just getting started in Siege, and he reached out and brought me on. Now, keep in mind, I think the guest before I came on, I want to say, was the Russian Badger. So I had no business coming on there, but he reached out to me and brought me on, and he was really complimentary. He liked a series I did at the time called What Would You Do in This Situation? I've kind of named it to Situational Siege, and he was very complimentary of that type of content. And the thing that jumped out to me was he was very adamant about the casual player. There would be times where you would have conversations on Twitter where casual players don't even get considered. You know what I mean? You'll be talking about,
it's true.
You'll be talking about who cares if they remove yacht? And he would always be that guy who would speak up and be like, I care. I don't want them to remove maps from casual. I don't play ranked. I want to have a good experience in casual. And there's a huge portion of the player base that is like him, that doesn't play a lot of ranked, that is mainly just playing casual. And I think that was very important that he always stuck up for those players. The other thing that I would say that really stuck out to me with him is he had a full-time job, and his content was very it wasn't like me, where I'm doing this full time and I'm going to release like 3 videos a week, pretty much every week. And, maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later, but some weeks I could release 5 videos, and some weeks I have like enough ideas to release 1 video. So I'm like scraping the barrel, and maybe some weeks I do only release 1 video. But for him, because of the nature of his content, what always stuck out to me is he made content when he wanted to make content and when he was excited to make content, and he didn't force anything. And he, being one of the first people to do this, he could have forced it into a position where he would have probably been one of the biggest Siege creators that we know of today. But he didn't. He kept doing his full-time job, and he made content whenever he felt it was appropriate and when he was excited to do so. And I really respect that about him.
That speaks of his dedication, because I do recall one of his early sort of Q&A videos back in the day, him saying that he would, maybe there was some news or something, because he would do similar sort of content to what I do. He would like give opinions on news-based items, and he was so dedicated. He would literally be doing that in his lunch break at work. He would be doing voiceovers. I believe, I don't think I'm making this up, I believe he said he would sit in his car and record a voiceover for his video on his lunch break, so that when he got home, and obviously he had a family life and everything going on at home after work, he could then obviously make the video and upload the video, or upload the video at work. I mean, that's, and a testament to his character and how much he cared about his community. And I think, like, something else I'd like to add really is, and it sort of touches upon what Alex was saying, about you don't know what sort of day people are having online. And I mean, it has made me a bit introspective about, some of my interactions with people, and just like making sure that I'm available to people in my life personally and online, and that I am considerate to people's feelings. Not that I think I haven't especially been, but I think sometimes when things like this just come out of the blue and just utterly like shock you like that, it is time to just hold still for a moment and just like consider how you're behaving as well. And if you're ever contributing to someone's well-being or someone's mood in a bad way, so it's something that I've really been thinking about since this news came out at the weekend. So sad.
Yeah, the world really is on fire right now.
Yeah. I said this, I went to that same place, Pete, after thinking about this. And let me be clear that we don't have any, there's no indication that anything that happened online had anything to do with Icy Cat's passing. There's no signs or hints of that I've seen. But I immediately went to that space as well, Pete, just thinking about, first thing, I feel so much regret right now that I didn't get the opportunity to return the favor to Icy Cat and ask him to come on this podcast. It was something I wanted to do. It was something that's on my to-do list. Like, I wanted to do it to kind of, give back to him for helping me out whenever I was coming up, and I never got to do that. And I will regret that for a long time. The other thing is like just default to being kind and love and compassion, because you just don't know what people are going through at the time, man. And sometimes people wear their emotions on their sleeve, where if somebody's having a rough day, you're going to know it, but sometimes they don't. So if you just by default come out with your personal interactions from a place of love and compassion, I think the world's going to be much better off.
I agree with you. I think it is, it's a time for reflection too, this situation. And like maybe I'm gonna, reach out to some people. Like if we're being like super serious, like I haven't spoken to my mum in like 2 decades, man. Like I've been thinking like about a lot of deep stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
do I reach out to like people like that? Because you just don't know, like what's, we're gonna get onto some other stuff in this podcast, but
Yeah.
you never know what's around the corner.
Well, that's a weird thing for me is in Scandinavia, don't. I mean, I can't talk on behalf of everyone, but it's very uncommon to ask, "How are you doing?" You don't do that. It's seen as a bad thing. And then on the other hand, whenever I'm like traveling in US or UK, everyone asks, but no one gives a fuck. Like
Right.
no one cares.
It's a default.
not a
You might as well say hello. When you're
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
how are
like-
you, you're really saying
Well,
hello.
You all right is a greeting in Britain. You all
Mm.
right, and we're not asking you if you're all right.
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Like you
Just hello.
really don't want to know, right? Like it's just hi. But that's weird. I feel like if people would just at least talk to their closest friends about shit that bothered them, right? You don't have to tell like people you don't know, because that's probably not that comfortable either. But there's some person somewhere that you can share that with. Like there's always someone. Even if you think shit's as bad as it gets, everyone has someone somewhere that there will be willing to listen. And it's probably good to share some of those things, because it could be the difference, right? Like one conversation could literally save a life.
Yeah.
I think that's I've worked with arriving to to get people out of apartments and stuff once they have chosen that way, and it's awful to know that all that horrific stuff might have ended if there was just someone on the other end to listen.
Yeah.
And that's without even knowing anything about the situation, right? You might not even need a reply. Maybe just read it and say, you know what, I hear you.
So goddamn hard though to just open up sometimes, like because we've had a pretty, before going live today, we've had a pretty deep conversation between us where like my heart was really on my sleeve, and like we had to stop for a moment and we went and all got a beer just to come back and carry on the chat. And I must admit, like when I went to get that beer, I was like really thinking, fuck, like sometimes I'm not like sure of, I'm not even aware that I'm carrying around so much emotion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it isn't, it's like I don't allow myself to even be conscious of all the shit that's worrying you and like keeping you awake at night. And it's hard sometimes for someone in those situations because maybe like they just can't get it out. They can't tell another person because they're worried about how it sounds to that person.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
Interesting story regarding that really demonstrates what you're talking about there, Pete. And it was actually at the Raleigh Major. So at the Raleigh Major, the main area was around like the Marriott Hotel and Convention Center there. That's where like the venue was and everything. And I was at the Marriott bar and had a few drinks. I wasn't like drunk necessarily, but I had a few drinks. And I was leaving and I was going back to my hotel, which wasn't there. It was, about a 20-minute Uber ride to my hotel. And as I was waiting on my Uber, a guy comes up to me and just starts talking. And it was a complete stranger in a foreign city. And I, for some reason, I'm normally really shy in those situations, but for some reason in that situation, I just opened up and started talking about all the pressures and stress that I had been feeling. And part of it was probably the amount of stress I was feeling because I was playing in that Creator Cup. And I made a video talking about my anxiety leading up to that and
I remember that.
how much that really weighed on me. But in that moment, a complete stranger, and I'm sure he got more than he bargained for whenever I started talking. I mean, I was talking about YouTube pressure. I was talking about family pressure. I was just like for some reason, this complete stranger, I just opened up to him, and I felt so much better. On that drive home, I was just like, man, I just like, it goes both ways. You need to be the type of person who people can open up to you. If you care about somebody, make sure that they know that they can talk to you. But also, if you're a person, you need to be okay with opening it up to people. There's nothing wrong with a big, tough man going to therapy. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a big, tough man crying because they're upset or talking to somebody about how they're scared. There's nothing wrong with that. And it can feel really good. I can attest to that.
I've worked with a lot of really, really tough men. And the only ones that last are the ones that do that. Yeah. Like, unless you share it with someone, you're going to break. And you can sit with all your, I can deal with, no, you can't. No. Right. Like, no one can. The difference is who you choose to share it with, right? Like, firefighting, you're lucky that you have a crew you can talk to. And there are people that are, like, dedicated to help you that you can go to. Talk to your spouse, girlfriend, family, whatever. I think the weird thing in this industry is that 99% of the people I know have to put on a mask when they do content because they can't be themselves fully. Maybe they have to live up to who they were half a year ago or a year ago. Maybe they have to create X amount of controversy. Maybe they have to create none. But no matter what, from day to day, they can't be their own emotions. They have to be a certain person. And carrying around that mask and like being a content creator or an actor online for that amount of time has to be draining on people. Then you can take the gamble and just be you, but then you're going to hurt some feelings up like along the way because you're going to have a bad day and you're going to tell people to piss off. And that's not always the best thing business-wise to do. Like it's really difficult to know.
Bridges going around doing that, Alex. It's like,
yeah
you want to do it, but
half burn some bridges. But it's difficult because at some point, for whatever it might be, business relation, sponsorships, whatever, everyone has to, be a persona at some point. And that's what you're getting judged on, right? Like that's what people see. So the comments you're receiving, the interactions you're receiving is all on your persona. And very few of them are like have anything to do with you. Like actually you. Because people don't know what you do from a day to day, how you interact with people in real life. Events help a lot with that. Like people come up and they're like, damn, you're very different than I thought, or you're easier to talk to than I thought, or right? Like those things are kind of, I don't know, they wake you up a little bit. If people think that you are going to be difficult to approach in real life. But maybe it's different when it comes to like some weird profile picture with a funky name and the first interaction you ever have with them is some dumb comment in a video. And then you meet them in real life and they're actually pretty decent people, right? It's a weird detached industry where everyone is so close and it's so easy to talk to everyone, but no one really knows each other.
Yeah. I think I mean honestly, I'll even name drop here and give you a real example of exactly what you're referring to right there. Again, Raleigh Major. I went out to dinner with a bunch of Ubi people, one of which was Chowderhead. And we had a good time. It was like me, him, Macy J. We like I don't eat my hamburgers with buns, so he got a funny picture of me eating a hamburger with just like with just on a bed of jalapenos. So it's just like a beef patty on jalapenos. It's hilarious. And we had a good time. Like we had a good dinner and everything. So bringing it back to Chowderhead, I'm not going to say I don't get along with him, but we clash online. We have clashed online. But no matter what, I will always prioritize that one get together in Raleigh where we went out to eat and had a good time. That's real right there. That's like me and him are real people, And no matter what happens on Twitter or YouTube or on an online setting, no matter how much we disagree in that setting, I will always go back and look at him as the guy that I went out and had dinner with and had a good time. And I think that if to go along with your point, if you unfortunately you don't have the opportunity to go out and have dinner with every single person you interact with online, but I try to remember, like, online brings out the best and worst of us, and there's a lot of situations in which you disagree with people online and you might feel like they're the biggest idiot you've ever met, but in real life in a different setting, you guys might be best mates. And that's,
sometimes just honestly, like, having a real talk instead of a 240 character lockdown discussion.
Yeah.
It's funny that we all choose to have our damn discussions on Twitter, because it is the worst platform in the world to share your opinion. Like, Twitter is meant to put up cute cat pictures and say, I had burgers without buns, right? Like, that's what Twitter's for.
Right.
There is no way to have a meaningful discussion there. Like, the three of us have had them where we changed each other's minds, like, just explaining what we think, right? And you get to elaborate, and you can't do that on Twitter because people see the first response and that's what they go for.
Yeah, they
don't go for like the fifth one once you've already gone through stuff.
Yeah, man. I think it brings out the best and worst. Yeah. But I must admit that these days, and I don't know if it's an age thing, just full disclosure, I'm 36, so I'm an old git. But like the amount of times someone else has just, by the way, happy birthday to Alex. He's just turned 30 this week. Yeah. That's a big bloody birthday, man. You are a boomer. Boomer Alex. So what was I going to say? No, just like the amount of times that I look at, my tweeting has gone way down in the last year because it's just so depressing, and it's just everywhere I look, and I feel like I'm keyed up to see it, but all I'm seeing is arguments and disagreement. And now someone else might say, do you know what? That's actually really healthy, and we should have these disagreements because we can thrash out and we can build consensus and we can find middle ground. But part of me just feels like it's so antagonistic so often. It's just not a comfortable place to be for me in my mental. Like, I don't want to necessarily get involved with all the depressing news all the time. I mean, all the other news we've had lately on top of the terrible news about Icy Care. I mean, the stuff about, individual creators and the allegations against them, which I don't think we should get into. But I mean, it is a depressing place, Twitter. Yeah. But I don't want to say it's entirely depressing because, I've had some amazing interactions with people on there.
Yeah.
And feedback too about this podcast and about other things where it's like, oh damn, like we even had one the other day we were tagged into, like thanking us for the podcast and getting him through the pandemic, through a tough situation. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow, man.
So it's good. Sucks. We're so much more likely to share bad news than we are to share positive stuff.
Yeah.
And that's all of us, man. Like, we're all responsible for that. We're so much more likely to interact with bad stuff than we are with good stuff.
But that's a preservation thing, right?
Sure. Human, like, self-preservation. You want to share it with your community so they know to be careful and all of that.
Like birds.
You want to protect people. Yeah.
Yeah. Science and...
Maybe it was good back then. Maybe with internet,
exactly.
Maybe sharing a little bit of positive stuff is a little better.
Dude, we're not evolved for Twitter.
Right.
Like,
no, that's
we're not ready for Twitter. Twitter, come back in about 2,000 years. I mean, not that we've done any evolution in 2,000 years. Do you know what I mean? But
we're supposed to walk 60 kilometers, carry clubs, and beat sable-toothed tigers to get dinner, right? Like,
sounds like a fun day.
Hey, I'd be out there. But yeah, it's a little different. And then everyone's locked down at home right now. Everyone's sitting there a little quicker on the trigger, right? Like decisions are being made maybe a little faster than they should in general. You see something that pisses you off, there's a message on Twitter, someone says that whatever, this operator needs this. And you haven't really done anything that day because you can't go anywhere. So you think, you know what? I'm gonna fight this guy on Twitter because then at least I get some sort of action.
Yeah, it's like I've got energy, and I'm gonna get that energy out. And sometimes it's gonna be by running, and sometimes it's gonna be by getting in a Twitter argument.
Yeah, Your Twitter
More often
should
than Twitter,
unlock
right?
after 10 pull-ups. Like, that should be a thing.
Yeah.
Twitter unlocks after 10 pull-ups.
Oh, that'd be
Each
great.
tweet requires like 10 minutes of exercise or
Dude.
something like that.
But I do
That'd
the
be-
push-ups instead of the pull-ups because I got kind of fat during lockdown, man. Like
Yeah.
the pull-ups are a no-go. Push-ups I can do just about. But,
Yeah.
All right,
I'm kind of the same.
let's do that. Let's just the three of us agree. We're doing 10 push-ups before every tweet.
You know
That's
the
actually
thing,
a good.
though.
That's good. That's a good.
I think I prefer Twitter to Facebook and stuff like that. Though,
I
'cause
deleted it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
deleted my
man. Facebook, I only keep going for my YouTube group that's in Facebook, which I have not responded to in over 2.5 years because I resent Facebook so much. But occasionally, and I mean, I literally mean 2 or 3 times a year, I will just open Facebook and have a look. And all I see is, and hey, you might accuse me of this too. I hope not as bad as what I witnessed, but vanity. It's like, it's incredible. It's look what I'm doing and look what I am and it's like, man, like I don't need to live my life through a Facebook post. So I don't see that so much on Twitter. Twitter is more combative arguments and which does at least have a positive outcome often. But Facebook, I feel, is like a totally different self-indulgent platform.
Yeah.
About posting pictures about what you're up to and what you're achieving. Not that you should be happy for people achieving, right? You should, of course, but I mean,
Yeah, but it's never
the
your
vanity
real
of
life.
it. Yeah,
We
yeah.
do
No.
we all do the same thing on Instagram, right? Like if I post something to Instagram, I'm not posting the picture when I wake up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not when you get out of bed and you're like, oh,
That
I don't
perfect
want to do
dusk light.
anything. Right? It's maybe you've been in the shower, like
I want
collected
that. I
yourself.
want that, Alex.
You're a decent person, right? And then you post a picture and you're like, I'm getting stuff done. But like, what if we all started posting a picture the second we woke up? First thing in the day, just what's up? Like, things would be a little different, right?
I'd like to see your beard first thing in the morning, because I could imagine
Dude,
it could be a bit
looks
everywhere. It'd be
horrible.
no,
Especially
man, I
after
think it'd be fun.
a little drool down the side, and then you have like a big puff on the. Yeah, no, it's not good. I think we're very busy with, and when I say we, fuck it, I'll just say me, because then at least no one's gonna get upset. But I think we share the best parts only, which of course we do, because that's what you want to show. And it's no different in real life. You're going to tell the best stories about yourself to your friends, or the people you don't know. But those are normally not the most interesting ones.
Yeah.
So just assume that most people are way more interesting than they seem. It might just not be for the purely positive outlook.
Sometimes I think that we have, before we go live, I'm sure you two will attest to this, we have some really interesting conversations. But once that camera's rolling, and I do feel I like, it's not a courage thing. It's just like a stage fright almost, to go into detail some of the stories and to some of the things that we go into off air, which I think is a shame, because I would like to feel a little bit more at home with sharing some of this stuff with people, because I'm sure there are people who have the same, can feel the same sort of things and have the same experiences.
Yeah, I've always just kind of felt like nobody cares about what I'm going through. You know what I mean?
It's a confidence thing, though. You're like, when we were in Barcelona, man. Do you remember? I'll tell you this story, right? We was in Barcelona. We had to get to Camp Nou to watch Barcelona play Sevilla, and we were never going to get there because it was pretty much my first evening in the city, and Barcelona isn't like in the United States where you hail down, taxis. I don't believe, anyway. It's more like pre-bookings, like private hires. Anyway, like we aren't going to get to Camp Nou. We've got to get there in half an hour. And like Dylan's running across the road after this taxi driver who's like pulled up. He's gone in a restaurant to have a meal, and Dylan's like running in there, like grabbing this taxi driver. And I was like, I'm not saying this as a criticism. I admired you so much. I was like, dude, being this like English guy, I was like, oh, so polite and just, fannying around, basically. We had to bloody get there, and you were like, oh, I'm sorting this out, like, immediately. And you were like Chase running after this taxi driver, following him in a restaurant, and he was like, Dylan comes out, he's like, yeah, 2 minutes, we're going to be at Camp Nou. I was like, oh, okay. Do you remember that?
Yeah, let's not talk about what happened after Camp Nou.
No, I mean, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story, man.
See, that's the story I want, but we can take that one off there.
We got lost. Long story short, I mean, okay.
It was an amazing game.
Amazing game. We saw Messi score a really good direct kick. It was awesome.
This is football, right? You're talking about.
It was just, what's that?
Football, right?
Yeah. It was just me and Pete.
Soccer.
And after the game, everybody leaves the game. Camp Nou holds, 100,000 people?
It's massive.
Yeah, and everybody's getting a taxi at the same time. So Pete and I, we had the idea, we're going to go walk down to, it's going to be a little bit of a walk, but we'll get away from the crowds. We'll catch a line down here. We thought we had everything planned out. Well, we took such a long walk that by the time we got to the train that we wanted to get on, they were closed for the evening.
I just want to add something to this story, and then you carry on. This walk was like an hour and plus, and I was chafing. I had underwear. It was like, I actually think I felt down and to the chafing, and I lifted my hand up, and I'm sure I saw blood. I mean, it was nighttime, but that was some serious chafing. Anyway, carry on with the story.
So we're in the middle. I mean, not the middle of nowhere. Obviously, it's Barcelona, but we're off the beaten path in Barcelona, sitting there is the train closed? We spent probably a good, 45 minutes just wondering if the train's ever going to come back, and it didn't. And we're in so at this point it's probably 1 a.m. We're in a shady part of town, and we walk over.
We got a train, but it went the wrong way.
Yes.
Just to add that,
yes.
It was about half hour the wrong way away from where we had to go, so we were further from the hotel.
Right. And then by the time we got off of that, the train was closed now. That's what happened. And
we were in shady town.
Yeah, we were in a bad situation. So we went over to this grocery store, and it didn't make it. I felt like we were lost tourists, and we were going into some random grocery store and asking for help, and it just did not give me the warm and fuzzy. So the only idea we came up with, which was actually pretty good, I think this actually was a pretty good idea. We was let's look up the nearest hotel on our phone. We walked to the hotel, went into the hotel lobby, and said, "Can you call us a taxi?" Because again, everything is pre-booked there. And they called us a taxi, and the taxi showed up at the hotel and gave us a ride. But it was
You're cutting out the best part of the story. So basically, you went into this little shop. It was really dark. We were in a foreign country.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of streetlights. It's a shady part of town. You went into this dodgy-looking shop, and it was dodgy-looking, man. It's and it's not because it's in Spain. My wife's from Spain and that, but it's there's parts of London like that. There's parts of Liverpool like that. There's any city, there's a shady part, and we was in the shady part. And you went into the shop, and you were trying to get them to ring a taxi company because there's no Uber in Spain. So we needed a taxi to the hotel, and this guy, you had your phone out. I was really worried, and this guy didn't really understand, and he was calling mates over, and it was getting a little bit shady. So we decided to walk, and then we were walking, and I had 10% battery on my phone, and we need to go through that underpass, and we got to this underpass, and honest to God, we both looked at this underpass because we needed to go through there, and we both looked down there, and it was well lit, along there. And we couldn't see through the other end. We just saw it sort of curved round. And then we both looked at each other and went, fuck no, we're not going through there. And then we carried on. And that was when we stumbled upon our hotel. But that moment where we both looked down that underpass.
And you both agreed that this is simply not
the play. That is not an option.
I imagine Get Flanked and Pete walking down there, looking down the alley and going, no.
We'd had
and just
the
5 seconds of silence where you're both accepting that.
Yeah.
And we're just going back.
Our eyes met and they held. We looked at each other and we held our eyes, and it was we both knew immediately. We didn't have to say anything. We were connected at that moment that we were not going through there.
I was just praying that Pete was thinking the same thing as me, because I didn't want to look like such a chicken if he was going to be let's go. It's just an underpass. I would be like. There was maybe I'm imagining this. There was graffiti and stuff. It was it was
shady looking.
It was the beginning of a horror movie, and there
was a guy at the other end looking behind the corner, just waiting for us. No, there weren't.
If we're sharing travel stories, I got one. So I'll wake up in Tokonami, and I'll look at my watch, and when when you're tipping far enough back on the chair that you know you're gonna fall.
Yeah.
That feeling. So my plane is leaving in like 7 minutes.
Oh.
And I'm about 10 minutes away from the airport. So for at least 5 minutes, you are thinking, I'm just gonna be as fast as I can, even though you know it's not gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
You're screwed. And this all comes, like, I've always had the hotel wake me up on the day of departure, and I've never needed it because I always woke up at like 5 a.m, fresh as bird, easy. Like when I travel, I'm always the first one up. Mace J and I normally have breakfast at the hotel in the morning. Like we're always
in bed or
up. Well, mainly in the restaurant. But we're always early up. And this one time, I chose to not get the hotel to call me. So, and it's already been a pretty like shitty travel experience because my luggage was lost and I only just received it a day not even a day, like 8 hours before I had to be on air. So my suits and everything had been missing for the whole week, and I finally realized, you know what, I'm gonna miss the flight. I'm screwed. So I relaxed, walk over to the airport, and I try to find someone that can speak English. I couldn't find anyone in the airport that could help me figure out what do I do now. So I call, I go online first and figure out like what I can do. I finally find someone who's willing to help, and they're like, your easiest bet, honestly, because like the next direct flight you can get from here to Denmark is going to be like 2 days or something, is to get to Tokyo somehow. And like, I'm just sitting there thinking, dude, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah. I can imagine
it ends up
dread.
being the best, or at least like it's a definite top 5 of travels I've ever done, because I ended up spending the 30th birthday of a really good friend in the middle of Tokyo. I would never have seen Tokyo if it wasn't for missing that flight. So all the anger and spite I had for myself during that little mishap of fucking up and not getting hotel to wake me up, and the $2,500 that it ended up costing, was so worth it.
Yeah.
I got to spend a full day in Tokyo. We saw everything. We went to a nice place, got some Kobe meat with the Fanatic guys. We went to some bars in the middle of nowhere where you literally walk down like this narrow street, and there's only like seating space for 5 people in each bar. There's one bartender and 5 seats, and that's it. And you're sitting with your back up against the wall. There's no
Dude,
space.
I like that. That's amazing.
It was one of the best travels I've ever had in my life, and it all came from a massive mistake. And the money will be replaced at some point. Right?
Well, crikey, there's
But
more to life than money, dude.
Yeah, exactly. The experience is like something I will forever remember. So yeah.
Japan is one of those countries too where for us Europeans it's not an ordeal, but it's like it's a big trip. Japan for us, you know, it's not, you know, we're so fortunate, right? Because I've been to I'm not going to flex here, but I've been to Denmark, okay, and I've been to lots of other European countries, many, and but it's
Denmark's
easy. So it was, but if you're American, right, it's no different to you going to lots of different states. I mean, me going to France or Germany, or it's so easy. It's like literally $100, well, non-pandemic times, $100 there and back. You just got to fit up a hotel, and you've got a lovely like. We just do weekends away in Europe, don't we? You know, you just go away. I'll go do a weekend in, you know, Cologne, Berlin, or something, and it's really simple. But you know, Tokyo is not like that, man. So I'm really glad that you got to see it and you got a really good, you know, interesting story out of it. And on a smaller level, I can empathize because, you know, like many of my best nights out, in fact, the night I met my missus was not a planned night out for me. It wasn't like, guys, we're all going out Friday night. It was just, you know, someone comes along, hey, you want to go out tonight? And I was like, not planning it. and then you go out and you have a fucking epic night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that in life, isn't it? You can plan something for ages and it can be a bit of a letdown, a bit of a disappointment, but sometimes
Yeah.
something that just happens on the fly can be amazing.
It kind of translates to Siege, right? Like the thing when you win that one round, it's always off some sort of mistake that you managed to fix.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing in real life. Like the most memorable things aren't the ones you planned. It's the ones that like came to be, right? Where stuff went south or you had to do something and you end up in a position where you just got the better half. Plenty of opportunities out there.
Well, I guess you're not making it any easier on me here, Pete. But sharing these stories because we've had a lot of good times, man. But we have some other bad news, and I'll just let Pete kind of take it away here. But yeah,
just we digressed a lot from what we originally opened this podcast about, which was Icy Care. And I just want to say, I believe that there is a fundraiser going on at the moment, and I think we can share that in the
I have the
description
link
for the funeral costs. So just to finish off on that, moving on from that, and it's not really related to that news, but I think this is probably 99% my last episode of Logic Bomb, which hasn't been an easy decision to make. I mean, I've really put it on the line to you guys, spilled my heart out and told you, how I, off there, how I sort of come to this decision. It was really bloody hard. Like, in actual fact, I was welling up before we went live today, we were just really talking about it quite openly. And Alex was like, guys, we all need to get a beer. We need to get a beer and just like collect ourselves. Because, I've known Dylan now for how many, like 3 years?
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. And Alex, he came on the previous podcast, but I mean, I've really got to know you quite well over the last 6 months. And off air, we've had so many conversations, and you've been a big help to me as a friend. But I've come to this point in my life, like as I said earlier, I'm 36, and I love doing this podcast, by the way, and I love hanging out with you too, and I love talking to people that watch the podcast and that. But I feel like I'm spreading myself so thin, I can't give what I need to give to excel at something. Like I want when I do something, I want to kind of excel at it. And if you watch some of my YouTube videos, I mean, some of them I spent there's one video I spent like 2 weeks on for like 20,000 views, and I mean like 2 weeks of 8-hour days. I mean, and like I sometimes feel I'm not able to give as much as I want on this podcast because of some of the other projects I'm doing. So I have a full-time job. I have the possibility of a promotion coming up. It's possible anyway, which I'm working towards. I'm starting a business at the moment with my family. Again, I can't really get into too much of that at the moment, but it's not YouTube or video game Siege related or anything like that. It's completely left field. I'm studying to do for my full-time job, this specific course I'm doing, like a professional qualification, which is like 10 hours a week. I've got a YouTube channel that I barely upload to because I'm like constantly spreading myself between all these other projects. I feel like I'm neglecting my personal friendships. And, like the other day I was like, just took a moment to myself and started reading a book, and I started feeling guilty. I actually felt anxiety that I'm not studying, or I'm not doing a YouTube video because I haven't done a YouTube video in nearly 3 weeks. And it's like, and I started thinking, damn, man, I can't go through life I can't just read a book or pick up my guitar or like just switch on the telly and watch a football match that I really want to watch because I'm like spinning so many plates. And I feel like because I'm spinning so many, they're all wobbling. None of them are spinning well, and I feel like for that reason I need to step away from this podcast because I can't give it what I need to give it. And it's really such a hard decision because I love it. I absolutely love it. And this podcast is going to be so massive. And I know people will appreciate it. Before we went live, you were saying, Dylan, like when you go to events, people come up to you and say, oh, I like your videos. But more than anything, they say like, man, I love your podcast. I had it with the Hot Breach, and I've had it, with this one. So it's such a hard decision. But I feel being the age I am, and I know I'm running on now, but it's like I need to focus on certain projects that I know are going to bode well for my future. Do I honestly think I'm going to be making YouTube videos at 46? Do you know what I mean? I doubt it. And if it, you know, and if it isn't, if it isn't going to be something that can support my family, you know, as much as I enjoy doing it, then maybe I do have to wind it back and just allow it to be a hobby, you know, something where I do like 3 or 4 videos a month, and I'm not applying all this pressure on myself, because, you know, it can build up, man. You know, like it can, you find yourself putting so much pressure on yourself to fulfill so many things and to do it well. You know, because one of the reasons I'm upset is I don't want to let you two down, man. I don't want to let the audience down. But I don't know. I don't really know what to say. But I just wish that there was more days in the week. I wish there was like another 2 days to do everything I want to do in a week.
Well, I mean, for the viewers, to give you kind of, I guess, context
they
here.
clapped. I told them all that, and they were like, "Woohoo!"
No,
you know?
no, I guarantee you they
still,
didn't. Pete.
But you're still doing this episode. No, that was Alex. I stole your joke.
Pete told us this before we went live today, so it's not like we've been talking about this for the past month or anything like this. We had no idea until
it's fresh.
So I think Alex and I are still kind of processing it. We've both tried talking him out of it. We've tried. You know, we don't want to lose Pete.
But you continue with my blessing, man. I want to make that really clear, and that's why what I would never do to you is like just announce this on Twitter or something and not come on the podcast, so that, you know, there's that doubt of like, oh, did they fall out? Or I'd never want that, man, because, you know, I have so much admiration and respect for what you are both about. Forget your YouTube stuff, just as people, as men. I wanted people to hear it from me that this is my decision to do this. And it's so fucking hard, because honestly, it's like, it's such a good thing, and I know it's going to grow, and I know it's only going to get more popular. You know, if you're thinking about it in that sense. But what can you do? Like, I can't split my time between everything.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. And I think, well, I mean, obviously, I mean, you know, I think that we all, in talking about this before we went live, I think we're all feeling very stressed right now. Now, in different ways, you know, Alex and I have the luxury of doing this full time. You know, not the podcast. This is one of the things that we do. But Alex and I are both content creators full time. And, you know, in talking before we went live today, I think we're all pretty stressed right now. I mean, there's a lot going on, and obviously in the world. YouTube is, as a platform, has a lot of issues right now. Ad revenue is way down. If you want to get to the nitty gritty of it, and, you know, who knows, Pete, in a year, I might be having to get a full-time job. I don't know, you know, and I can't imagine having a full-time job, all these personal projects, family life, all of that, and then still showing up every week for the podcast. I'd like to think that I would still try to, but if I'm being 100% honest, man, I don't know how you've done it this long. You know,
that's the thing, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's like today, I started work at 7, finished at 5, got home, and then we started recording this at 6 p.m. And I know it's like, dude, there's people doing so horrible jobs out there. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, my wife is going to be home in about an hour, and I'm not going to have been able to at least cook a meal, you know, and she's done a 12-hour day, and I'm like, and then there's that guilt feeling of like, she's coming home from really working her socks off, and it's like, I'm just sat up here prattling around doing a podcast. And it isn't all about money, but if this was paying for me to be full-time and I didn't have to go in and do, you know, all of that, then I could prioritize it and move things around. But it isn't, and I've got to be realistic at this stage of my life. I'm not a 20-year-old, I'm 36. I've got to be kind of sensible about what I'm giving my attention, and it sucks, man. It does suck, because I'd love to do this.
But that, like, you don't, like, that's the thing. You don't have to justify that other people are doing worse stuff or more stuff, right? Like, that doesn't matter. It needs to make sense for you and your time. And that's the end all be all, the important thing. I think what we've so far, at least, we talked about this off air, is that Flanked and I are probably gonna run this with some guests in for a while, and then see what happens. And hopefully Pete finds space.
That's our
Maybe
real
not.
plan.
And I
That's
really
our plan.
appreciate that, by the way. Like a
Maybe that
2 week
happens.
calling off, maybe to think it through.
Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But at least we're not gonna like close off everything and be like have a new one in next time, or like there's no plan for that. This is all pretty dynamic. We only knew of it today. We did have a good like 1 hour discussion before all of this, and you've come with some pretty compelling and fair arguments. And it's not, I'm lazy, I don't want to do this. And at the end of the day, honestly, like if you just came and said, I don't enjoy it anymore, that is just as good of a point as anything else. But you had some like honestly good arguments for it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to do right now, and I can't blame you. If I couldn't do this out of the luxury of just taking this as like 2 hours off every week, I probably wouldn't justify it either. So I think for me that's the bigger thing. I wish this could become a thing where it's just 3 friends getting together to talk about Siege gaming, maybe just how we're doing, and have that be the main goal of it. There's so many things in Siege, and I'm gonna keep playing that for a long time and be involved in it for a long time. But I feel like we have something, the 3 of us, where we can talk about some stuff that isn't otherwise going to be talked about, because it doesn't fit on Twitter, it doesn't fit on Reddit, it's not a short-term format or anything like that, and it's like we have time to actually think a little bit about what we're going to say, and articulate them properly, or bring on guests. But I think both Flanked and I really respect the way you at least came to explain it to us.
I'm sorry I dropped it on you today too, because it's something I've really wrestled with, Alex. It's like not something I've decided today. I mean, I've made that final decision today, and I felt you should know straight away. But I mean, this is something that I've been really like thinking about for quite some time. And I think I'm just going to lay it all out. I think I don't even know how long I'm going to be making YouTube videos and exist in this online space, exist on this Twitter account. Because my whole focus is like currently moving away from this sort of sphere. But I hope I can carry on for some time. And I'll tell you what, that's another thing, guys, is I don't like, it's particularly, I've never played as much Siege as you two, and you guys know that that's not a problem for this podcast, because we have always cherished this concept of having different points of view, and that being very important to how this podcast is done, that we have someone that plays more casually, ranked, try hard, Flanked, and yourself as an analyst. But I mean, lately it's been harder and harder to get on and play Siege. And then I feel, obviously last week we didn't do a podcast, but then I do feel slightly disingenuous, because I'm not saying I've done this, but going forward, I don't ever want to come on a podcast when I'm not playing the game. Even if I'm not just getting on for one evening a week, if I'm not playing at all between 2 podcasts, that then I think is not right. Because if you're going to make videos or make podcasts or content about a game, surely you've got to be playing it. Surely you've got to be steeped in that game, even if it's not necessarily that deeply. If you're not thinking about pro league strategies, I mean, if you're just making news videos, you should surely still be playing the game. And I would say for the last week I played nothing, and for the couple of weeks preceding that I haven't played a great deal, just here and there. And from that point then it jars, because I come on and you might talk about, hey, I've experienced this with Malusi, which is something we're going to potentially talk about later. It's like, well, I don't have a point of reference. So then I feel insincere, and then I feel like I'm not giving people, excuse the expression, their money's worth for listening to the podcast if I can't provide a valuable opinion, having not played so much of the game. And that makes me feel like I'm not being true. I don't know how to express that, but I'm sure people listening can kind of understand it. if you don't, I don't want to fake nothing. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be pretending to be something, because then it's like not worth my time, because I'm not really making money from this either, right? So like, to then come on here as a hobby and not be true to myself is like, that's the worst.
Well, I go back to what Alex said, and I would say that I understand you thinking that, and that's the most important thing, is what your mindset is on that. But for me, it's you're coming on as a friend, and we're just talking, and what we initially had in common is Siege and playing Siege. But I mean, we just shared an incredible story about our time in Barcelona.
Who knew we'd have become lovers?
Yeah, who would have known? But yeah, so it didn't matter to me. Like, if you would have told me I haven't played Siege in a month, it's not like I would have been like, well, Pete, you can't come on the podcast. You know what I mean?
out.
Because you're. I mean, I never looked at it that way, Pete. If that makes sense.
I honestly think that it could be kind of cool having an ex-content creator on the podcast.
Thank you. No, and yeah, that's the funny thing, isn't it? Because, I suppose I still absolutely love Siege, because, I mean, guys, I've been so open and honest in this podcast. I don't feel like I've held shit back, right? So I can tell you, I still love Siege. It is literally my favorite game. However, I feel gaming in general, I'm moving slightly away from in my life. And this is going to sound sad to people that, particularly the younger audience, not the older guys and gals listening, but the younger audience. Like, I planted sunflowers this year, first time ever, and I've been planting stuff in the garden, and I've been out in the garden, really enjoying. Like, I feel like my focus is changing, and I've just been really enjoying it. This little seed I planted is this massive 4 or 5 foot plant now. It's about to flower. It's crazy. But that means, I mean, that's stupid to talk about that. But like, I do feel
for anyone,
yeah.
just like.
Yeah.
So I just turned 30, so I'm only a couple of days away from being able to correlate that with playing Siege. That's like when you stop playing and now you just open an alpha pack, right? It's like, it matters.
Yeah.
I still love the game, man. And if I'm going to play a game, I want to play Siege, or maybe it's a bit of Warzone, but less gaming.
The hardest part about this is that I don't want to continue a podcast without you, Pete. And obviously Alex and I talked about it. We're gonna carry on here, but I don't want to. I mean, I want to, but I want it to be with you.
I agree.
So that's the hardest part. But one of the things about this, like hearing you talk about this, that hits me really hard, is I see so much of myself in you, and I'm so scared, man, that I'm like 2 years behind you. You know what I mean? Like, or a year behind you. You know what I mean? Where like, we're the same age. I mean, I'm actually older than you, and man, I have my, I'm so happy to have the job that I have right now, and I'm happy to be doing this full time. And it wasn't that long ago that your channel was way bigger than mine, and you were getting way more views than I was. And I don't say this as a slight to you. It's the insecurity of the platform. Like, during this whole COVID thing, man, I'm getting more views than ever, and like half the money. And
it's not because you're obsessed with money. You've got to think of your whole family. Just for people, there will be that 10% of people that are like, oh man, it's not. He's got kids. He's got, you got family to think about.
None of us are driving a Lambo. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I'm not driving a Lambo. I can tell you that.
You worry about security because you aren't working a 9 to 5, man.
Right.
It's natural that you worry. It's on you and YouTube, the platform and the algorithm, whether you get paid.
Right. And to see somebody that I like yourself that was doing this before I was within the Siege community, and to see you walk away from it, it scares the hell out of me, man. It really does. This isn't going to last forever, man.
It might not, but I think you've got many years in with the content you're doing. It's honestly, you provide such a service, and that need will be there for so long. And on top of that, I mean, what you've done, which is very clever, because when you went full time, And I never did that. I always stayed in my job. And maybe I'm going to come back to that point, but maybe like that is a lesson for people. Is like, actually, like when we talked to Pengu, he had that conversation with his mum and he fucking went for it. I never did that. I actually kept doing my job. And now you might say with this downturn, oh, thank God you kept doing your job. But hang on, maybe if I quit my job, I'd have built something bigger. Maybe I'd have been a full-time streamer too. But because I never did that, maybe that's part of it. Because I kept doing the job and the YouTube, even when I was doing okay. And what was my point? Sorry. Yeah, you've diversified. Like, so you've got this thing going on with your org. You've got you Twitch stream. I never really streamed, man. So you've got different income streams, which is good, you know, for the security of your family. So I think you'll be all right. And I don't think you need to lay awake at night and worry about this stuff needlessly.
I want to throw a little stick in that wheel. When you say like maybe if you just went for it, maybe. But
yeah. Who knows?
That's the problem is that we're all like we all know the Cinderella stories of where it worked out.
Yeah, that's true.
The problem is no one knows the ones where it didn't.
Yeah.
Because they gave up everything and got nowhere. I think it's fairly important to say that for 90% of people, if you can't do both at the same time, you shouldn't do it. Because the same goes with like playing competitive. There are plenty of people that work a full-time job, manage to play competitive, and then they quit their job once they can. Like once it's realistic and feasible to do so. But the romanticized idea of just try, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
It's pretty bad what the worst that can happen.
It's actually...
It's pretty bad.
It's really important you've said that.
Yeah. So for most people, if you have the passion to do it, then it's going to be possible doing while you have a job. Maybe at some point it won't be worth it anymore. I think that's where it's important. You give it a try and you see if it works out. If it doesn't work out, well then it is what it is.
I think what I'd add to that though, I think where I might differ from some cases is there probably was a period where I was doing okay from YouTube. Like I weren't like Lamborghini guy, but I mean to give you an idea, maybe I was on. Are we allowed to talk numbers?
Sure.
Talk numbers.
I don't care. Go for it.
Maybe I was on like dollars wise $5,000 a month at that time, right? So, and that's that's more than my day job, really. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I could, but at that point, I kept doing that and my day job for a period of, say, I don't know, 6 months. No, not 6 months at that rate. Not 6 months at that rate. Like, around that sort of level. And then YouTube changed, and then I was like, oh man, I'm so glad I didn't do that. But there was also, do you know what? And this is no criticism of anyone that's a content creator, but there is a part of me that needs something else going on anyway, that needs another project to be involved in. And I couldn't necessarily just do content creation full time and not have that interaction with other people in the real world. And in fact, I actually crave to be alone, but I know it's unhealthy for me to do that, and I have to force myself more so to be around. Just
to not get people ideas, like you're saying 5 a month, that sure, but it's super volatile, right? Because we can all attest to this can go from like being 5 or 6 a month to being like 1 a month or 500.
Yeah,
like you can remove a 0 from 1 month to another with the same viewer numbers.
Yeah,
right. Mm-hmm. It is. I don't think that people understand how much it can change. There's so many YouTube videos out there with how much does a guy with this and this make. Almost none of them translate to real world. Yeah. Because it might have been true for that guy for that 1 month. But for the next one, it wasn't. And for the next one, it wasn't. Sometimes, like, same goes for me. Some months are really good. Some months are really bad. And the good months have to keep up for those bad months, right? And it has to guarantee that I can do it through some bad months. Because I'm not going to jeopardize family and household, car, wife, all of that stuff.
Sure.
Just so I can play video games for a living. We should actually change it to the Boomer podcast at this point. So
well, $5,000 isn't a great deal. I know this sounds really like disgusting, but $5,000 in the UK would then be say £3,500, And you wouldn't make that every month. Plus, you have to pay tax on that. So if you work for a company, that tax is in Britain anyway, is already taken out. So if I earn £3,500, that's not all mine, man. I might have to put 1,500 to one side. So that then leaves you with £2,500. Well, my rent every month with my house is 1,000. Then I've got all my other bills, my internet, and like it does whittle away. And that isn't just YouTube money. I'm talking sponsors. If you do a sponsor, you might maybe get $1,500 or something like that to go on top of $3,000 from YouTube or 3.5. But I mean, I'm nowhere near that now. You can take multiple zeros off of that. I'm making like $5. Yeah.
Well, I think to bring like it back to, because I mean we're focusing on the money aspect now, but I think that what that says is like if you're at a point where your income and you're paying for your house, you're paying for things by doing this thing over here, and this is a hobby, but yet you're spending a lot of time on this hobby, that's what you have to cut when it comes to priorities,
Oh yeah.
And I think that's, I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing because what we do is a hobby for a lot of people when it comes to playing video games and stuff like that. But
I mean, the adult thing is to scale your hobby down before everything else.
Right.
Like it's your passion project. That's what you do.
It is a bit gauche or vulgar talking about money in that way, but that's just real. I think people deserve to know really like what, that's just how it is. And there's always that thing. That's actually one of the things I really that really worries me about doing this is because with my day job, in Britain we have a thing called PAYE, so all the tax is taken out. I never see it, so I get X amount in my pay slip. With YouTube, obviously, you need to be putting that money aside, and you need to make sure, because if not, like when the tax payment comes round at the end of the year, you're in like big trouble.
Yeah,
Taxman will never let you get away with it. So not that you should, but it is one of those other things. So if you earn $4,000 or something, you need to be putting away like $2,000 or something each time you earn that.
Yeah,
I can be pretty transparent about it. Let's say if you have like an average of 100,000 views a month on a YouTube video, and you're like top 5 or top 10 on Twitch, content creator wise, if you are willing to put the same amount of time, if you're willing to put around the same amount of time into just doing normal hard labor work, the same hours, you will probably make around the same. Because I quit a construction job to do this. This is a lot more fun. It's not as bad on the back. And I enjoy it a lot. It's great. I'm probably not going to be worn out by the time I'm 50. But I won't be doing this until I'm 50. Right? Like I'm not going to be able to play at the same level, have the same amount of energy as I otherwise would. So it's a short amount of time where you have to like make up for stuff, because you have to kind of plan ahead of what you're going to do once you can't do this anymore. If any of us were just doing a normal hard labor job and we were working the same amount of hours, because I don't think people remember that you might stream for 8 hours and then edit a little bit here, but you work like most of the day. Then you're checking Twitter. That's work as well. That's what people will kind of forget. Like I've started looking at, like, when I open Twitter, that's work time, man.
You're clocking on.
Yeah, and you have to, because otherwise it starts being this personal thing where like you have some sort of extra interest in it, and you can't. Like you need to look at it as work, both for health and for hours, right? So once you clock all of that out over a day, it's not that impressive anymore. It's good, and it's not by any means bad. I don't think any of us are complaining at all. But it, like, it's not this magical thing unless you are the highest up there. It really isn't this like superhero thing.
There's also, I mean, streaming is one thing, which, I'm almost envious of streamers in some ways. Because I've always, fancied myself more of a YouTuber. I just feel like it's more consistent almost. But and here's what I mean by that. With YouTube, I mean, you can look at my channel right now. You go back, I think maybe 6 videos, it was 120,000, 130,000, 140,000, 200,000, 150,000, like all right there. And then you look like my last video, 5 videos, 30,000, 40,000. And then there's like one in there that has like 200,000. What happened?
Yeah.
What happened? I'm talking about the same stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? And now, the first time that happened, you're like, oh my God, you know what I mean? You're like panicking. But I've been around long enough at this point that I know that happens with YouTube. And every other time, it's come back. But one of these times, it might not come back, okay? And I'm just going to tell you, I can't live off of 30,000 views per video, okay? That's not going to happen for very long, and me continue to be a full-time YouTuber. So...
but it's worse than that, because you could have the video that got you 200,000. You could have that be the lowest profit video of the month.
True.
Right? So if everything lines up the right way, you could have these 200,000 view videos, but make nothing. And your 30K ones are the ones getting the high ad revenue, which then in return makes nothing.
Right.
Because it's 30K, right?
Yeah.
That's why people squeeze videos over 10 minutes. It's like, just the fact, I tell people, you would be shocked at the difference.
Yeah.
It is shocking. It's, I've done, I don't know, a 6-7 minute video that's had, I don't know, 400K views over time. And it's like not made a great deal of money. But then you could have a 10-minute and 25-second video, and it gets like 50K or 80K views, and you're like, God damn, like that's like $400 there for that one video. I mean, that's reasonable. Like that's really, but a lot of people have to work a week to earn that. I mean, you put it into that sort of thing, it's a lot of money,
Yeah.
But that's just to pick up on what you said there, though, Blanked. It's like maybe that could be one day the thing I do is streaming, because what I like about streaming is don't get me wrong, I know you do stuff off air and you talk to sponsors and there is work involved and you talk to your yeah, okay, but YouTube, I've literally had someone go, oh, I've had them equate the length of the video to the time put into it. And I can tell you, man, I've done a 20-minute video that did take 20 minutes, but I've also done a 6-minute video that, as I said earlier in this podcast, took 2 weeks or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I've done a 10-minute video that's taken a week or, 20 hours when I've been breaking down and recording different perspectives. It can take ages. It's a lot of work. And it's a lot of time sat on your ass when you don't necessarily want to be after working, where you feel unfit and unhealthy, staring at screens.
Yeah.
Working on something, just a little bit of content, which is just a fluffy bit of content. You're not saving lives. You're not really doing anything that important.
And then to put that work and put it out there on the platform and to see YouTube suppress it, not even notify your subscribers, not even put it in your subscribers' inboxes, and much less even recommend it, it's really tough to handle. And it makes being a YouTuber very anxiety filled. That's the only way I know how to describe it, man.
And then you get the comment from Jeff saying you suck.
Right.
The first comment.
Just to make your day.
Nice.
Or you start with a dislike as the first thing. That's the
Those
thing.
are my favorite, though.
What's your favorite?
Like, if I can upload a 10-minute video and 3 minutes in I have a dislike and a negative comment.
Oh yeah.
That's it doesn't.
We get it
better
on the podcast sometime, dude.
Yeah, but think about it. Someone is so dedicated that they're waiting for it to go live and they don't even care to watch.
I almost like that. I almost like that now.
Those are super fans. I cherish them. I want to protect them. They need to stay there. Yeah.
Oh jeez. I tell you what, guys. I mean, we can continue this talk. My vibe right now. I don't even necessarily feel right going into Siege, to be completely honest with you. If you guys want to talk about the Siege news, obviously,
I just want to throw quickly out there. There's a cheating, fight against cheaters block. We can post that below, and then people can go read it. They probably should, because honestly, it's worth reading. Yeah,
a lot of information there. But yeah, kind of a dark episode here. I mean, do you guys want to carry on? Do you want to wrap it up here, or what do you guys think? On air production meeting.
I shall go with the flow here. Yeah, welcome to a behind the scenes view of what's going on. No, I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't mind. It's quite happy to wrap it up or carry on.
I think it's a healthy wrap up here. Like that, this
Okay.
is a pretty. People got to learn some stuff.
Yeah, and I
Behind
guess
the
maybe
scenes
let me
stuff.
throw this out here. I'm extremely lucky to be where I am, and this whole pandemic, although it's definitely affected my income, I'm still much better off than what a lot of people are, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And I'm extremely grateful for the people who watch my videos and who watch this podcast. Let me say that. But when you see somebody like Pete again, who was here before you and is stepping
Has a
away.
sob story to tell.
No, it's not a sad story, but it hits home. Like, this is not going to last forever. That's the big thing that's the big thing that's hitting me here. Obviously, so I guess I just want to make that clear. I also want to say before we wrap up here, Pete has done a tremendous amount of work on both this podcast and the Hot Breach, neither of which would have ever achieved the levels that it has without him. When you look at our integration into Spotify, iTunes, Pete handled all of that. Parker reached out to me setting up his podcast to try to get his stuff set up. I have no idea. I just sent him to Pete because Pete did all that.
I wondered who sent him my way.
Pete did all that. I had no idea, what to tell him. So, Pete, thank you so much for the work that you've done to get us to this point, man. You deserve to. I share your thoughts that I think that this podcast is special, and that I think that it's going to continue to grow and be something really special down the road. And I think you deserve to share in that. And it really saddens me that you are choosing not to.
Well, I feel privileged, to have been a footnote in it, man. Sorry, Alex. Go on, dude.
No, I just want to say, if there's some like extremely rich oil sheik out there that's a massive Logic Bomb fan, like, we don't mind putting a little sponsor icon up in the top left if that can keep Pete on the cast. No, I'm just glad that you were one of the 2 votes in even having me be here in the first place. And I'm glad to have gotten to know you, and I hope you reconsider, but I don't want to pressure.
That's something I'm a little bit, I really appreciate that. And obviously, everything we've done has been a collaborative from the beginning. You two have both put in a lot of work behind the scenes that doesn't get seen. So I appreciate you saying that, Flanked. But it is collaborative what we do here, or what I have done here. Before I end, I did just want to say, like, thanks to everyone who's enjoyed it, people that approach me at events and stuff. And I want you to know this weren't easy, this decision. It was really fucking hard, actually, really hard. And like I said, I was welling up a little bit, and it is really unlike me because I'm quite a sort of calculated person, but to get kind of emotional like that, because I know more than anything, I'm going to miss just chatting to you two, like every week. And some of it is the off-air stuff we do, which is a bit more personal, which I will miss. And I appreciate that you've left it open for me to think about, not that I've reached any judgment. And just a final thing, like, we talked about money and stuff during this, but it's not all about money. It's about, like, the balance in your life and and looking ahead at what where you see yourself and what you want to focus your time on going forward. But yeah, like, I'm so grateful. I've learned so much from the two of you. I really have. I've learned stuff about myself just being around you, and I've really appreciated it. And this isn't platitude. I fucking mean it. I've learned stuff just being around you two. It's been really interesting and fun, and it's made me a better person. So it's sad, but I wish you nothing but the best, guys. And this is going to be a massive podcast, and I'm just going to be like a little footnote in it, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that, that I played a small part.
All right. Well, we're heavy episode here. There's going to be lots of links down below. First of all, there'll be links down below. Anybody who's going through rough times and, needs help, there'll be a link down there for that. There'll also be a link down there for Icy Cat's GoFundMe to help pay for his funeral costs. And then on a much lighter note, there'll be links down there for the dev blog regarding cheating. We didn't get into that today, but it just doesn't feel quite right. So podcast will continue. That's what Alex and I have said. Exactly what that's going to look like, we'll decide and kind of come up with that as we go along here. Thank you so much, Pete. And
it's been a pleasure.
With that said, we'll sign off, and I guess we'll see you guys on the next one.